Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version, Text 36. Today is Friday, July 2nd, 2021. So text 36 of chapter 9, Srimad Bhagavatam. And we've been studying this verse for 2 weeks now or something, very long purport. Okay, so we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Etavat, Eva, Jigyasyam, Tattva, Jigyasuna, Atmana, Anvaya, Vyatirekabhyam, Yat, Syat, Sarvatra, Sarvada, Etavadeva Jigyasyam, Tatvajigyasunatmana, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, Yat Sarvatra Sarvadam, Etavadeva Jigyasyam, Tatvajigyasunatmana, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, Yat Sarvatra Sarvada, Etavadeva Jigyasyam, Tatvajigyasunatmana, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, Yat Sarvatra Sarvada.
Etavadeva Jignasyam,
Etavadeva Jigyasyam, Tatvajigyasunatmana,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada,
Yat Sarvatra Sarvada.
Etavadeva Jignasyam,
Etavadeva Jigyasyam, Tatvajigyasunatmana,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada,
Yat Sarvatra Sarvada. Would anyone else like to recite the verse?
Etavadeva Jigyasyam,
Etavadeva Jigyasyam,
Tadvavigyasya Sunatmanaha,
Tatvajigyasunatmana,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada.
Etavadeva Jigyasyam,
Etavadeva Jigyasyam,
Tatvajigyasunatmana,
Tatvajigyasunatmana,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada,
Yasyat Sarvatra Sarvada. Okay, We'll go to the word for word. Etavat,
Itavat.
up to this.
Happiness.
Eva,
Eva.
certainly.
Certainly.
Jigyasyam
Ignacium.
is to be inquired.
Is to be inquired.
Tattva,
Atla.
the absolute truth.
The absolute.
Jigyasuna,
Ignasuna.
by the student.
By the student.
Atmana,
Amana.
of the self.
Self.
Anvaya,
And Vaya.
directly.
Directly.
Yatire kavyam,
Yesterday. Kaviva.
indirectly.
Indirectly.
Yat,
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever.
Yat,
Yeah.
it may be.
It may be.
Sarvatra,
Sarvatra.
in all space and time.
Spacious.
Sarvada,
Sarvada.
in all circumstances.
In all circumstances.
Translation. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Okay, so we're gonna start reading in the purport. It's about in the middle of the purport. It's the paragraph that begins with the words Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. So it's about the middle of the purport, and it's a paragraph that begins Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. And it's just before a series of Sanskrit verses, because we in other classes in recent weeks, we've read up till there. Okay. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada therefore comments on the word Sarvatra Sarvada in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service to the Lord, are apt in all circumstances. That is, Bhakti Yoga is recommended in all the revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. As far as all the revealed scriptures are concerned, he quotes from the Skanda Purana on the topics of Brahma and Narada as follows. Samsaresmin mahagore janmamityu samakule pujanam vasudevasya tarakamba divi smritam. In the material world, which is full of darkness and dangers, combined with birth and death and full of different anxieties, the only way to get out of the great entanglement is to accept loving transcendental devotional service to Lord Vasudeva. This is accepted by all classes of philosophers. Srila Jiva Goswami also quotes another common passage which is found in 3 Puranas, namely the Padma Purana, Skanda Purana, and Linga Purana. It runs as follows. Aloja sarva shastrani vicharya cha puna puna idam ekam sunishpanam deyo narayana sadam. By scrutinizingly reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayan is the supreme absolute truth and that he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in the Garuda Purana as follows. Param gato pibedanam sarva shastra tavedyapi yona sarveshvare bhaktas tam vidyat purushadamam. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered the lowest of mankind. Similarly, it is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12 indirectly as follows. Yasasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana saver gunes tatra samasta deshara harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratina sati davato bahi. One who has unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead must have all the good qualities of the demigods, and contrarily, one who is not a devotee of the Lord must be hovering in the darkness of mental speculation, and thus must be engaged in material impermanence. Srimad Bhagavatam 11:11-18 says, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato Na Nishnayat Pareyadi Shramastasya Shrama Palo yadenum eva rakshata. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literature of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even the women, the Sudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. Tevai Vedantya Titaran Tita Deva Mayam Sri Sudra Una Shapara Api Papa Jiva Yad Yad Bhuta Grama Parayana Shila Shikshas Chirya Jana Api Shudra. That's from Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 46. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Kipta Pakshi Miganam Cha Haral Sanyasta Chetasam Ordvam Eva Gatim Manye Kimpuna. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfection of life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So what to speak of the philosophers amongst the human beings? Okay, we'll pause there. And it seems we'll spend at least another two or three classes on this verse and purport. Quite epic. Amagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayan Tedati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Ram Srajatam Sahabhakam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Visakanditam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatayubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desha Tarine. Narayanam namaskritya naram charvinarotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta Prayeshva Vajreshu Nicham Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad Yutamashloki Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Text 36, chapter 9, Canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Ektavade Vajigyasyam Tat Vajigyasunat Mana Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam Yatsyat Sarvatra Sarvada. Just do a scan here, get the scene.
We're still here. There's more people arrived.
Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, it's ever increasing. Paramprad did a whole transformation from virtual to in person. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So in the part of the purport we read, Prabhupada starts with this stating the name, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. And in the next paragraph, he starts with Srila Jiva Goswami. And then all these verses he's quoting to illustrate the philosophical points, he's following along in Jiva Goswami's writings. Prabhupada, quoting many acharyas and scholars, sometimes refers to Srila Jiva Goswami as the greatest philosopher who ever lived. So this is a weighty personality, Srila Jiva Goswami, and so Prabhupada, right at the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is Prabhupada's translation of Srila Rupa Goswami's The Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada quotes a stanza from Sri Srinivasacharya about the Goswamis. Nana Shastra Vicharane Kanipunam Sadharma Samstapaka Lokanam Hitakari Now Tribhuvane Manyao Saranya Kara Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajananandena Matalika Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghu Yuga Shri Jiva Gopalaka Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghu Yuga Shri Jiva Gopalaka. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, and Sri Jiva Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal spiritual principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis, and they're always rendering service to Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. So that's a particular stanza that talks about one of the many qualities of the Goswamis, that they're scholarly philosophers, not just for the sake of exercising the analytical faculties, but to get to the essence. What is the essence of all philosophy? Philosophy means like a sincere desire to come to truth. So Prabhupada discusses that here. That Srila Jiva, first of all, we can notice that Prabhupada refers to Jiva Goswami as Prabhupada. We can notice that here. So Prabhupada says, he therefore comments on the word Sarvatra Sarvada in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service to the Lord, are apt in all circumstances. So that means absolute. That means absolute. That absolute means ultimate. A few weeks ago, we had a class entitled, if it's regulated, it means it's not good. Okay. Like if we see in the guidelines, right? Like, yes, so it's like in the Vedas might say, yes, you can eat meat in these circumstances. You can drink alcohol in these circumstances, and these are regulated. Means the idea is not only just like in the Bible. In the first chapter, it's described the ideal diet for human beings is vegetarian. But then later, so okay, well, if you must kill animals, at least follow this civilized principle and don't cook a calf in the milk of its mother, and but the idea is that don't do it at all. But now with devotional service, like with chanting genuine mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then it's just like, okay, so we should chant, but not like Tuesdays, right? I mean, not like so devotional service, but not like if there's one of these pandemic lockdowns. No, especially if they, so truth, absolute truth. We also often give this example. I can say, I'm David Wolf, I'm 60 years old, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So is that true in all time? Was that true 100 years ago? Will that be true 100 years from now? No. So that's relative truth. So absolute truth, that I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. I'm eternal servant of God. That's his absolute truth. So to engage in the soul's natural function in enlightenment, devotional service, true in all time and circumstances, absolute. And so then Prabhupada, citing Jiva Goswami, cites many verses described in Bhagavad Gita. Vedeshta sarvera hame vivedyo vedantakrit vedavit eva chaham. And so it says that so the goal of all knowledge is this devotional service to Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a theme, like the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads describe there are so many processes described, and they all culminate in their perfection and completion. They all culminate in their perfection in the soul serving the Supreme Lord with love and affection. Because we can, like it, for example, what's called the jnani, this Sanskrit term jnani. We can see English words like to know, or the Greek gnosis comes from the Sanskrit jnana. So it's described in Bhagavad Gita that coming to truth through our analytical faculties, bahunam janmanam ante jnanavanmam prapadyate, vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So Krishna says, so if one's very sincere, then after many lifetimes, one will come to the conclusion of surrendering with loving heart to serve Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because without offering our activities to God with devotion, we won't actually purify the heart. Maybe with some willpower, we can rise above material desires, but we won't get at the very seed to cultivate more material desires. So, Nasta prays for Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavat Yutamashloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. It's described by rendering service, by regular attendance in classes and discussions on Srimad Bhagavatam, and rendering service to the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee of Krishna, then all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed, and loving transcendental service to the transcendent Lord, who is praised by the choicest Vedic verses, is established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Vidyanta Stoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Sarit Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in the heart of all living entities, personally cleanses the heart from material desire for the devotee who is for the devotee who has cultivated the devotee who has cultivated attraction to hear and chant the attraction to hear and chant the messages of Bhagavatam. Such messages are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So this is the process, not just to like clip at the leaves, but to really get at the very root of material desire. So let's say in the Bhagavad Gita, in the verse about the banyan tree analogy, it's chapter 15. So Prabhupada, he gives a geometric analogy. So it's a brilliant metaphor given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. It's the metaphor of the banyan tree. And Krishna describes about there's a banyan tree with its branches going down and its roots going up. So some branches going down with what's that? So then it's explained. Well, like if we're standing on the bank of a river and on the other side of the river, there's a banyan tree. Then if we look at the reflection, then, oh yeah, the branches are going down and the roots are going up. So Krishna uses that as a metaphor for material realm and spiritual realm. And so, and just like if we were to, in the water and we're trying to, there's a fruit, it would be a fig. And we reach for it in the water, well, there's no substance. So similarly, the fruits of this world, the fruits of this world. So it's lacking substance. We can all give examples of our attempts to be deeply fulfilled by the fruits of the temporary flickering material nature, and we end up frustrated.
But next time I will be happy.
Next time, yeah. Frustrated. I was going to say frustrated is a generous term. Frustrated is like it's not getting to the core emotion. I just got a letter from someone yesterday who I haven't heard from in a while, and like he's really got he's got an ideal life, and whatever, he's like really successful and attractive, and he's got the house and the beautiful wife, and he's popular.
Got it all.
He's got it all. He's got the cars, the fancy cars in the driveway. He's got motorcycles, and he's suicidally depressed. And this isn't a shock to anyone who's paid attention to the nature of material life. So he's like really suffering, and so maybe I started in a humorous way, but I'm very glad he wrote to me. Very glad, because we had contact, I would say, mostly more than 12 years ago, and now he's just so he has no spiritual connection, no spiritual life, and of course, there's many people who could reach out to. He reached out to me because he knows what's coming. Because he knows what's coming. Like, well, if I just get a third fancy car, no. Let me tell you, it's not going to do it. And I don't know his wife so well, but I imagine that she's suffering terribly too, even though she has it all. Okay. So, So to realize the futility of fulfillment, joy, peace within the reflection, that's good. That's a spiritual achievement. That's a spiritual achievement to realize that. Okay. And whether it's this life or takes many lives, to realize that that's always chasing the carrot on the stick. And then Prabhupada makes the point that he says, and that's only 180 degrees of the circle. That's only half the circle. I mean, it's important. It's an important half, but it's only half the circle to realize the emptiness and futility of pursuits for inner security and fulfillment, happiness, all those contract qualities that everyone's searching for in that which will be destroyed by time. So Bhagavad Gita describes a truly wise person does not seek their fulfillment, their happiness, and their joy, their empowerment, their satisfaction, their inner peace in that which is temporary, in that which has a beginning and an end. Why? Because we're eternal beings. Just like our water, like a fish out of water. Our water is eternity, will only be fulfilled and satisfied, will only be fulfilled and satisfied with happiness that's ever increasing, that's not flickering, ever increasing and ever deepening. Okay, so that's the other 180 degrees. In other words, like negating the material that can be and is very helpful for spiritual life. In itself, it's not spiritual life. Negation of the material. So, okay. So then Prabhupada talks about, because in other words, like, this is just reflection. This is just like the dream world. So many analogies. Banyan tree is one of them. This is just the virtual reality game, right? It's like, aren't those beautiful trees? Well, okay, but it's like a machine. I mean, they're not that beautiful. Just like material nature is beautiful. It's powerful. Krishna says all these beautiful, mighty creations, they spring from but a spark of my splendor. It's beautiful. At the same time, the real trees outside of the virtual reality game was like, can't even compare, trillions of times more beautiful than the trees within the machine. Okay. All right. So there's a real banyan tree. There's real fruits. Yeah, these fruits are limited and temporary, and there's no substance there. It's the shadow. It's the shadow. Shadow indicates there is substance. Okay. So like a theme of Bhagavatam, a theme is so many examples of those who are completely realized in the futility of attempts at fulfillment in material life, the emptiness, the hollowness, the futility, the farce, completely realized, and they truly have no material desires. And they're attracted to hear about Krishna sporting with the cowherd boys. So like this would be like, what? No, it's like, they're not interested in sports. They're not interested in making money. They're not interested in getting to get compliments from people and being popular and profit and adoration and distinction. They're not interested in wine and women. They've truly transcended that, not just artificially, not like an artificial meditator or something. They've truly transcended all those desires. They're not interested in reading some cheap Harlequin romance novel. Yeah, Shukadev Goswami is an example. He was a fully accomplished meditator in the womb of his mother. And he got it in the womb of his mother, that material life, it's a futile waste of time. And again, that's a generous description. He so much got, his father is Vyasadeva, the compiler of all the Vedas. And Shukadev Goswami, he got like, this material world, this is a waste of time. This is just a temporary place full of misery. Dukkhalayam Shashvatam. I'm not coming out. No, he said, no, I'm not coming out. I get it. Like, he was a realized philosopher. So he was like a fully realized meditator in the womb. He was. So he was there for like 16 years. Poor mom. Precisely. So Vyasadeva called Krishna himself. Krishna said, look, I assure you, like, you're so realized, you can come out and you won't get bewildered. You won't get bewildered by profit, adoration, distinction, sex, desire. You'll be fine. So Shukadeva Goswami said, okay, I'm trusting you, Krishna. All right. So Shukadeva Goswami comes out, and then and then he just had no attachment to anything, even his dad, Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva wanted to associate with him, but Shukadeva Goswami was just, and so the example given in the first canto of Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami so realized that, so he's passing by, there's a pond, a lake, and some young damsels are bathing naked. Okay, and then behind him is his father. It's just like, son, I want to talk with you. I want to, really, Vyasadeva wanted to give him Bhagavatam. So, Vyasadeva wanted to give him Bhagavatam. So then Shukadeva Goswami passes by and the damsels don't even cover themselves. Then Vyasadeva passes by and the damsels cover themselves. So Vyasadeva stopped and was like, well, what's going on here? What's going on here? You didn't. So they explained, like, dear sir, Vyasadeva, no disrespect, but your son is just like so completely immersed in non-duality, so completely immersed in non-duality that he's not even making distinction, male body, female body. And Vyasadeva is a completely realized soul too, but he was in Grahastha ashram. So part of his pastime is to make duality, male body, female. So when you're coming, we cover up. So the damsels were Vyasadeva's guru to help him understand some things. And Vyasadeva's compiler of the Vedas there. So anyhow, so Vyasadeva, he's like he's really above any material desire. And then somewhere in the forest, he hears some of Vyasadeva's disciples chanting some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna and the cowherd boys and Mother Yashoda and the gopis. And he's attracted. So he has no attraction to anything material, but he's attracted to the Bhagavatam, indicating the Bhagavatam is completely spiritual. Atmaramaschamoyo, Yuganti Apyurukrami, Kravanti Tukim Bhakti Mitam Bhuta Guno Hari. Right? So this is transcendental sporting activities, transcendental romance, not material. That's the other 80. That's the other 180 degrees. That's the real banyan tree. That's the other side of the circle that completes it, not just negation of matter. Another example from the Bhagavatam, well, many cantos, especially the third canto. So the four Kumaras. Some of you have heard about the four Kumaras in one of our courses. We talk about the four Kumaras, and they come to Vaikuntha, the gate, the seventh gate of Vaikuntha, and Jai and Vijay, and Gulabjaman and Sandesh, and it's a whole thing. Okay, so anyhow, so the four Kumaras, just like Shukadeva Goswami, they're completely realized. They walk. They're shapeshifters. They're ancient sages from like 150 trillion years ago, more than that. And they choose to travel around the universe as naked 5-year-old boys. Choice, that's their choice, yeah. So they go anywhere. And they're completely realized in no material desire, just like Shukadeva Goswami. So then, well, it's a whole pastime with Jai and Vijay. I encourage you to closely read the third canto, 15th chapter, description of the kingdom of God. This is nectar. This is the other side. This is the real banyan tree. Okay, 15, just like, read Bhagavatam systematically. But like, if you want to choose a chapter, that's a fine one. They're all transcendental. So description of the kingdom of God, 15th chapter, 3rd canto. So the Kumaras are getting realization about the kingdom of the real banyan tree. So anyhow, so Vishnu comes along, who's Bhagavan, Vedanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yajganmadvayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shakyate. Learned transcendentalists realize the absolute in 3 dimensions, 3 phases. Brahman, the oneness, Paramatma, God in the heart, and Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is the most inclusive and complete realization of the absolute. From Bhagavan comes all the energies, comes super soul, comes material energy, comes spiritual energy. Aham sarvasya prabhava bhata sarvam pravartate iti madhva bhajante mam Buddha bhava samanvita. Krishna, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, I am the source of all material and spiritual energies. Those who realize this naturally engage in bhakti, naturally worship me with devotion. So the Kumaras, they're impersonalists like Shukadeva Goswami. And they smell a whiff. They smell a whiff of the fragrance of the flowers offered at the feet of Vishnu. And that's it. Their attachment to the impersonal Brahmagyoti finished. So it's like, well, so they smelled a flower. No, it's not a material flower, because they're beyond any material sensory attractions. So they caught a whiff of the fragrance of the flowers, the tulasi flowers offered at the feet of Vishnu. And then their hearts were filled with devotion, just like Shukadeva Goswami he heard Bhagavatam from some of Vyasadev's disciples, then he heard the complete Bhagavatam from his father, Vyasadeva himself. Then he's the main speaker of Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami. Yeah, that picture is there. He's bluish, without wearing a garland, without clothes. He's an Avaduta, beyond rules and regulations. So right. So this is fragrance in the other 180 degrees of the circle. So yeah, so material dancing just entangles us in the frivolity, the superficiality of the temporary place full of misery, illusion of enjoyment in the dream world. And then what is spiritual dancing? What is spiritual friendship? Because there's rejection of material. That's so helpful as a foundation for spiritual life. And actual spiritual life is spiritual fragrance, spiritual pastimes, spiritual activity. And we get to practice that eternal bhakti process here. We get to practice it by learning the art and science of how to offer everything to the Supreme Lord. We could say with loving devotion. So some of us, we might say, I don't feel much loving devotion. But Prabhupada makes the point that just even if we do it and it's a little mechanical, it's like, okay, well, I'm supposed to listen to Bhagavan. He said that's the spark of the natural love for the soul. That's the spark of the natural love for the soul, for Krishna. So just the fact that we're giving some time to these processes of bhakti, it's just like, we can give ourselves some credit. Not to become proud and arrogant, but to encourage ourselves. Like there must be something there. I'm given some time here on a Friday morning to hear about Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sajjaka Bhanoy Shavanadi Shuddhachate Karyudai. Love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities, including, as described here, worms, even cockroaches. Hard for me to accept too. Hard for me to accept too, but it says it here. So I'm accepting Jiva Goswami. Okay, that even in the hearts, wherever there's life, the love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. It's not something to be gotten from some external artificial source. And it's awakened through this process of hearing and chanting Bhagavatam, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And so it's devotional service to please Krishna through his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. And it's for, say, well, I'm not into service. I want to be selfish. Okay, so this is Prabhupada will make the point. This is, do bhakti, it's the best way to be selfish. That one's filled with material desires, one's transcendental desires, one's spiritual, whatever. The best course of action, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Pusham Puram, intense devotional service. And that we as the spirit, we as the person we actually are, will be completely fulfilled. Savaya Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir and Hokshaje. I took it pratita Yatma Suprasidate. That the supreme occupation dharma for everyone, and that's everyone, is devotional service to Vasudeva, to the transcendent Lord, Adhokshaje, to Sri Krishna, the transcendent Lord. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So it's like, it's profound. Like if we really want to be satisfied, cultivate devotional service. And, call it tricky or whatever, but like, well, I have all these other desires to fulfill. Okay, we'll just do devotional service anyway, see how it goes. And then the trick is the heart becomes purified, and more we just want to dance in kirtan. We just want to study Bhagavatam. We become spiritually, healthily addicted, and using that term in the most positive way. And the result is that the result of all other processes are naturally achieved. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayujita Janayat Yashuvairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hutukam. By rendering devotional service to Sri Krishna Vasudeva, then one, the result of then one automatically becomes detached from material desires. And one automatically gets knowledge of the soul, knowledge of the distinction between matter and spirit, the distinction between soul and supreme soul. What is karma? What is time? Knowledge and detachment from matter come automatically, which are the goals of the Jnana Yoga process, the Astanga Yoga process, the Hatha Yoga. So those processes culminate in bhakti, take directly to bhakti, and the goals of all those other processes are naturally there. So this verse that we're studying and discussing today, it's the fourth of the 4 seed verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is said to have 18,000 verses, all beautifully transcendental. And these 4 verses, these are the seed verses from which the whole Bhagavatam expanded. This verse reads, Etavade vajigyasyam tatvajigyasunam anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatsya sarvatra. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your presence and attention. I welcome in at this time any comments or questions. Ladini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the class, for enlightenment. And last year in the summer, Anandini came to visit our family.
Yeah.
Her family came to visit our family, and we were reading the seed verses. We read it all.
Yes.
And then we got like quite abundance of discussion around this last paragraph that we read today. The worms surrender to Krishna. And I don't really remember what was our conclusion in the discussion, but I would like to hear like how can a worm, spirit soul in the worm, surrender to Krishna?
Okay. So your question is, how can a spirit soul in the worm's body surrender to Krishna? Because that's what it says here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thanks for your question. Well,
surrender to the transcendental level service of the Lord.
More so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Personal application.
Yeah.
No, because I think if I understand how worm can do it, maybe I could do it too. It seems that I have the facilities, but
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm very inspired to hear about the Sangha of sages there in Czech with visitors from the Swiss provinces. It's very, and so we got Anandini celebrating there. Thank you. And I trust that whole Czech scene will be in the next edition of Bhagavatam. Vyasadev's taken notes. Okay, so that verse reads, and again, it's Prabhupada quoting Jiva Goswami. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are short of elevation to the highest perfection of life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Okay. So if we look at what's being said here, so these verses are, it's about, this is absolute. It's like, okay, well, this is just for Americans. No, Czech and Swiss can do bhakti yoga too, and it'll be very beneficial. Okay, so it's only for women or blacks, Mexicans, people over 6 foot, under. So I think that's the essence here. The essence here is whatever the external form, and this is extreme, even worms and insects, whatever the external form, the spirit soul in this process of surrendering to bhakti yoga, it achieve the high. It's like it's non-discrimination. Krishna is he employs everyone. Okay. Now, to have spirit souls in the bodies of other species actually palpably take to devotional service. I mean, there's rare examples of that. Lord Chaitanya and Shivananda Sena's dog.
My favorite.
Yeah, okay. Whereas Lord Chaitanya and Ramachandra, they liberated trees to, but these are rare. This is rare. And that's why Prabhupada sometimes says, like, okay, we're probably like not gonna be successful to imitate Lord Chaitanya, who was truly transforming elephants and tigers and lions into devotees. He said, but at least we can do something with human beings. But the principle is there, the spirit soul in all species. I mean, it's just like there's no discrimination, there's no sectarianism based on any, this is truly universalism. This is truly non-secular, not based on any bodily designation. Now, okay, as far as serving those spirit souls in the body of worms, I did that yesterday. Yeah, because it was, so I had like some mango rinds, and I had these, I don't even know, I guess they were some sort of nut, like for me, like if I need to work for food, it doesn't work. Like it needs to be easy to get to. So there's like these nuts sitting on my counters, counter since 10 years, something. Probably true. And so I thought, like, I'm not going to ever get to this, right? You get a nutcracker. Oh my God, So I thought, let me give them to the squirrels, right? So okay, so we distribute the remnants of prasad, and the worms, so like the spirit soul in the body of the worm, they make quantum jumps in the evolution. Maybe next birth, rather than 200,000 births till humans, maybe it's one birth till human. So we can serve. That's my understanding.
Yeah, Bumi, our dog, she gets only prashadam and she does japa walk every day.
Yeah.
And she's transforming so much. And people who meet her say that she has human-like eyes. It's just her expression is so different than other dogs, and she bow down to every other dog. She's a big dog, and even if she see puppy of a chihuahua, she goes bowing down to all other dogs. And all the people around the neighborhood are saying wow, this dog is really different. And I can see she's transforming through prashadam.
Special quality prashadam, and she's hearing Bhagavatam.
And she still likes to roll in the dead fish to put the whole picture.
After all, she is a dog.
She barks.
Yeah, but she's so that's a good example. Thank you, Ladini. Brielle.
There's a last sentence of one of these paragraphs. It says, even the women, the Shudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. So I was wondering if you can speak to the born in sinful conditions.
Okay. Born in sinful condition. All right. Yeah, so Prabhupada quotes a verse there from the second canto, 7th chapter. Okay, so in that same, I think might be the next verse, there's a similar verse Prabhupada quotes a lot. Kiratu Nanda Pulinda Pukasha Virashambaya Vinakashadiya Yanecha Papa Yarapashaya Shubjanti Tasmaya Pavavishna Vedima. So that verse speaks about Czechs and Germans and Russians and Europeans. No, it does. But no, me too. It's about Europeans. Prabhupada said that American basically means from the European races, but it actually gave the Greeks, Turks, like that. So that verse from 5,000 years ago, Shukadeva Goswami says, even they can be delivered by serving a pure devotee of Vishnu. Even they're completely delivered. So we're all born into Papa. Papa means sinful conditions. And it's not like yeah, no fair. You know, no, it's just like, it's according to my desire. It's it's not an accident. So we're all born to Papa in different, it means like attachment to matter, misidentifying of the self with matter, and misidentifying of the self with matter, and just completely convinced if I just enjoy matter, and I'll find victims to exploit to help me enjoy matter, then I'll be happy. So this is the mentality. This is the mentality that we're all born into to different degrees. Yeah. So that's it. Now, okay. So like with women, you know, so generally speaking, so if I think I'm a man and you're a woman, so that's a bad start, right? Because so like, okay, so we're spirit souls, maybe in a man's body and a male human woman. Okay, then spirit, like, so the spirit souls in the women's body, generally have, a lot of advantages to realize the absolute truth. Like, because this is like surrender to a person. So generally for spirit soul in a female human body, it's easier to give their heart to a person. So they've got great advantages. And then there are some relative, not absolute, but relative disadvantages that spirit soul and with the psychophysical nature of female human compared to male human, generally, not always, but so generally it's just like generally easier to like surrender to a person. And then that's why women get exploited a lot, because like, I don't think you're surrendering to the right person there. You're going to get smashed. And it happens to men too, but it happens to women more. But yeah, just like look at any given month of coaching. It's like, this is a theme for women. Okay. So, okay, but then, so then the potential disadvantages is spirit soul and in the female human external and sort of psychophysical nature. There tends to be I'll call it like the material senses are more alive. Okay, more alive compared to spirit, soul, and male body. Okay, basic.
Pleasure senses.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just say. Okay. Let's say if we were to go into a women's clothing store, just imagine the variety of colors. Women's clothing store. Okay. Now just imagine going into a men's clothing store.
Boring.
Ladini said boring. Okay. Brown, black, navy blue. No,
I didn't even know that. I thought I didn't even notice.
When I was a teenager, my mother used to drag me to clothing stores.
That's not true for Panta, is it?
Oh, yeah, I think it's harmful. That was an exception.
I'm speaking, yeah, I'm speaking generalities here. So that's why even in the men's clothing store, you might get the psychedelic orange with flower print or something, like, in the corner somewhere. And I think as generations go on, it could be changing, but you get the idea. So it means like, and it's not just visual, just like in general, spirits on women's body, like they're just more attentive to the distinctions of taste. I'm like, it tastes good, I like it.
That's true.
Well, can you say more? It's really good. No, I've heard women like they'll just. I don't want to get, I don't want to make, but in all the senses, just like women are more alive, and then generally speaking, I'm not making absolutes. Women are more alive, and so and so that's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's wonderful, and it can also foster more of an attachment to the life of the material senses, and then that can make it difficult to live an austere philosophical life. So there's advantages and disadvantages of all bodies.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it's called sinful conditions.
Yeah.
And then they talk about forests as forest dwellers or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Simple or sinful?
Sinful conditions.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Prabhupada uses the language he does, and it's perfect and complete. And then so part of our Prabhupada wants us to share the principles in our own language. So of course, sinful is like the most politically incorrect term. All right, it's, oh my God, there's so many connotations that it provokes reactivity. So okay, sinful. Let's just deconstruct it scientifically. Basically, anything, any thought, any action, any use of a resource that further alienates ourself from ourself, and that further alienates ourself from that intrinsic devotional connection of the self with God, that's sinful. That's sinful. So that's, in a sense, nothing intrinsically external is sinful. If we go to a movie, and in that movie, it's deepening my realization of who I am as a spirit soul. It's deepening my enthusiasm to serve Krishna with love and devotion. Then it could be a mundane movie in the movie theater, but that movie, that experience is not sinful. And but if I'm doing something on internet or whatever, having a conversation, and it's further immersing me in illusion about who it's further immersing me in the reflection of the banyan tree rather than going towards the real banyan tree, then that's absolutely good. So
And the whole sentence is
the
liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even, and he lists all the people, anyone living in sinful conditions. So he's just saying the liberty to discharge devotional service is completely within you, any condition. I don't know if that
I was born in sinful conditions, that's for sure. Like my parents forced me to do so many sinful things, including that when I was teenage, I didn't have a much sex drive, and my mother found a 50-year-old man was well known for satisfying women in all the city, and she wanted me to go to him to help me. So I personally can relate very much to the statement born in sinful condition, including being forced to eat meat and doing all sorts of really crazy things.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and I relate to that. And I had wonderful parents and wonderful upbringing and like that, and it was. I can say for sure that the conditions I was born in, which are wonderful, very nice childhood, the conditions I were born in are surely far, 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 far more sinful than the forest tribes described here. Like the forest, like the Malechas and the Chandalas and the forest tribes described here, it would be like many quantum steps up compared to the Montclair neighborhood in the Fox Chase section of Philadelphia, upper middle class, like many steps up to come to a forest tribe level.
Yeah, that's what I was confused because the forest tribes are living in this higher, in a way, a higher consciousness than
Yeah.
so many people in the West. So I don't understand like why these three things are like singled out, like women Shudras. I mean, I guess we are Shudras, so that's the West, is we're a bunch of Shudras basically. But
Lower than the Western lectures. Like
yeah, I just exactly. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Prabhupada's quoting Jiva Goswami, and so that's about 500 years ago, and so he's not talking about industrial civilization or the communications age or like that. He's quoting Jiva Goswami. So Jiva Goswami is talking about worms and insects, and so Jiva Goswami is like, yeah. So there's the classical Vedic conception. You got the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas and then the Vaishyas and then the Sudras. Then you kind of get off the chart to Chandalas. So Jiva Goswami is making the point that even the forest tribes who are like off the chart on the lower side, they're much, much greater than the Brahmins if they take to devotional service. So Prabhupada's using Jiva Goswami's language.
I'm fully satisfied. It's okay. I trust you with Prabhupada.
It seems that it's something to say, oh, he's isolated the worms, or he's like singling out the worms, but it's not singling out the worms. It's just giving example because the forest tribe are considered uncivilized from the point of view that they don't follow the Vedic scriptures, and the Metra and Chandalas and the Western people too, they are uncivilized. So even the worms, even those who are considered uncivilized, even those can come to the highest level of transcendental realization by performing devotional service. So it's just examples, like the Chandala or the forest tribe or the worms. They are just to show that really devotional service is so powerful that the lowest of the lowest can be the highest of the highest by performing devotional service.
Thanks for that, Malini. Yeah, Jiva Goswami or Prabhupada, they're not trying to insult worms or insects. They're giving examples to make the point, like for all spirit souls, engage them in devotional service, serve them some peel of prasad of mango. Yeah, just awaken that natural bhakti that's there in everyone without discrimination. And of course, sure, if we make a study of the modes of nature, so let's say, okay, the native forest tribes, yes, following up on what I understood from your comment, Bhaktin Brielle. Well, I liked your comment that you're not really satisfied, but you trust for the Prabhupada. So you're firmly situated. So yeah, of course, whatever, kind of native peoples or just like Amazon tribes or like that. I mean, now probably Amazon tribes have access to internet, things like that, but let's just get the idea. Of course, they're much more advanced than the Wall Street culture and Madison Avenue. Yeah. Of course, they're much more advanced. Right. And so that's why the idea is everyone can take devotional service. Once we get into analyzing modes, it could be, that can get complex, because on some dimensions, you can see this type of person has more intelligence, but they're using their intelligence to really violate the laws of God. So that's why human beings have more capacity, not the spirit soul, but the psychophysical has more capacity than animals. And we have the capacity to act much lower than animals. We have the capacity, whereas the animals and insects, just completely aligned with God's plan in creation. completely. It doesn't mean they're pure devotees, but in a sense, they don't have enough free will to violate God's creation. Whereas human beings, we can just pollute the whole earth, and we can just act in these just insane ways. So and then we're lower than animals. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
One note that helps me is so like so forest dwellers, like say native indigenous peoples,
Yeah.
like that. So we can have it's like okay. So there's the part that they're more in touch, in harmony with nature and according to God's
Nature,
laws,
plant, laws, yeah.
than highly technological societies and things like that. So there's that part's true. And then there's also a conception that we have of indigenous people and native people that's influenced by the theory of evolution,
Mm-hmm.
that everyone was native indigenous
Yes.
people at one time,
Yeah.
and cavemen, and then there was some native thing, and
Yeah.
then there was like evolution. So I think there's also, at least I did this, and
Yeah.
maybe for others, carry a conception of like native people are like closer to God, closer to the original ideal, to the original society.
Yeah.
But that's not the Vedic story. The Vedic story is there's a Vedic society that's the ideal that was existing 10,000 years ago. Because the evolution says 10,000 years ago, everyone's hunter-gatherers and native culture. So that's the original culture. So we kind of glorify, there's a tendency, as I did this, there's a tendency to glorify native indigenous peoples, that's like the original culture. Yeah. And that's according to evolution. And so that there's a Vedic description there's a Vedic is the original culture. And it was, so that's just a little bit of distinction.
Thanks for that paradigm and perspective. Yeah, because there could be like, to have a somewhat derogatory view that they're not, like when the theories of modern evolution developed, then in time of Darwin and then into the 1800s, 1900s, generally those native cultures, they're seen in a low way. And then the crown of creation, the crown of evolution, somehow or other, the crown of evolution are evolutionary biologists. No, am I wrong? No, that's the theory.
The ones who made the theory
Can you
are
explain that?
somehow,
Can you explain that?
Well, if we look at the theory, the crown of evolution, evolution leads to the top of the food chain, the topmost evolved entities, evolutionary biologists.
Okay, no, but explain that.
In other words, like, we come from amoebas and then to tomatoes, monkeys, and then vultures, and then elephants, and then to the hunter-gatherers, to modern Western intellectuals, like that. I mean, that is the theory. I mean, if I'm wrong, let me know, but that's the theory. Okay, but then, as Prabhupada is indicating, then when we get into the 60s and 70s, then there more and more became skepticism, for good reasons, about the whole modernist project, Darwinism, Freudianism, nuclear weapons, better living through chemistry, which took another meaning in the 1950s. Better living through chemistry was the slogan of DuPont Chemical Company, and in the 60s it took another meaning. So yes, okay. So then more and more there was skepticism about, well, look, the results of all this modernist projects are like gas chambers. We don't even have clean water to drink. Like, is this really the crown of creation? Is this really working, this project? The past 5, is this really working? We don't even have clean air to breathe. And then there became more of an idealization of the so-called primitive tribes, like maybe they have more wisdom than us. They're not polluting the world. They're not having concentration camps like that, because that's the result. Like the whole Nazi thing is a result of the modernist projects. Okay, like that. So then there became, maybe a idealization, a romanticization of the indigenous tribes on different continents, and there's a lot of merit to that, because they are more advanced in many ways than the Wall Street culture, than the university culture, like that. At the same time, it can become sentimental. So that's there too. It gets into a whole thing. That's a whole class or a whole course, and fascinating discussions. Because okay, so for sure, if they're, I don't want to be stereotypical, but if they're with their bare hands or their bow, they're killing a buffalo to feed their family. That's so much more honorable, and let's go to McDonald's and have a big, it's so much more, there's no comparison.
But the consciousness can be the same, but they don't have the opportunities, like with more money and more opportunities, resources, come more opportunity to show how degraded we actually are.
Yeah, and then just, thanks for that, Lydia, and then to take the sentiment out, but still, they are human beings, and there's going to be karma. There's going to be karma for killing the buffalo to nourish your body. Not as much vicious karma as hey, let's all go to McDonald's.
I thought you said forest tribe, or I heard that forest tribes are considered not human actually, and so that they don't acquire the same karma as us.
Well, we need to look at specifics. We need to look at specifics. We need to look at specifics. Hare Krishna. I appreciate this discussion. Damayanti.
Everything we read today was about devotional service.
Yeah.
And well, I'm contemplating how to approach devotional service.
Yeah.
How to take it on and receive it and accept it and
yeah.
Temper it, because the ideal is 24/7 and deep diving and just going for it.
Yeah, full immersion.
Yeah. And that does sound attractive at different points in my points in my life. Different points of time I'm attracted to intense. I have this I just go for it feeling. But in practicality for me, I find I'm limited. I just can't take it. I just can't digest it. When I attend, usually, not right now, but most of the times I attend Srimad Bhagavatam class, I get headaches and tension in my neck. I just get I feel like I'm detoxing.
Yeah.
And I need to take a nap, and it's a lot, and I just feel sensitive. I can't take a lot of intense devotional service, chanting. If I chant inattentively, I can handle more, but if I'm attentive, it's really intense for me.
Okay.
It's I'm emotions, and I'm entering Krishna's world. I'm imagining really far out. I'm just mind blown and expanded. And
It's too intense. Too intense.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to discover as of yesterday, or acknowledge this vehicle.
Yeah, that's
It
good.
has takes things in really hard, deep to the core, and I'm it's a small amount is intense for me of devotional service, and it's something I'm just exploring since yesterday. I had a conversation with Ladini Shakti, and I feel I got down to some core reasons why I avoid intense devotional service or minimum devotional service, just because it's like if I really give it to myself full attention to it, it's like really it's really transformative, and I'm really sensitive, and I'm overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And like headaches, sleeping, tension, I just like can't take it almost. So I just wanted to share that, and like wanting to learn my limits. Really, and it sounds crazy, but I want to be able to function in day-to-day life when I do attentive devotional service. So I'm like, I need to stay functional, not just like be like having like an onslaught. What are you thinking?
I'm with you. Well, I'm thinking of Krishna's statement in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He's talking about devotional service, and he says, gradually, step by step. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but I don't know about that. I don't know. I really don't know like my limits. And when I do too much, I'm overwhelmed. So it's a question for me to be being in the question with, not so much like I need like an answer.
Yeah, it sounds like you noticed something new. It's always been happening, but you like gave it words in a form. And it's like, oh wow, like overwhelmed when I go to a morning program or when I hear all the words are chanted really attentively, and maybe it can feel ungrounding. And so you're just like, okay, like where am I nourished and being able to live in bhakti without being overwhelmed, or is this okay? So you're just in the question now that you're noticing.
Yeah, because I want to be attentive and genuine and like authentic in it. And I think it's like really, I want to be steadiness. It doesn't make sense, but it's not. Yeah, I'm not steady really too much. I don't think. But so how am I going to sustain this and increase in a tempered way? I can't go
That's the question you're in.
Yeah. Do you have any comments besides be steady?
Any ones that she wants to
Jeremy? It's an intense, this is a fairly intense process. It's like the transformation of the soul, it's intense, if I give myself to it. And I need to function. I want to function day to day with other services. And if I'm too attentive, I'm blown away and I'm mind blown and I'm like, flooded with emotion. And maybe it's just a matter of managing my nature or managing my, my mind. And
Well, I'm thinking of a few principles from Shastra. Rupa Goswami describes ways of being that are helpful. And he goes, Utsahan Nishchadvarya Tat Tat Karma Pravartana. So Utsahan translates as enthusiasm. And Prabhupada translates enthusiasm as endeavor executed with intelligence. And Nishchaya means a steadiness, determined. So just because that's enthusiasm, rah, rah, rah. But here we're looking at to have our intelligence in gear. That's part of bhakti. Intelligence, like for the long term and like that. So that comes to mind.
Yeah, I'll just share one more thought that
we have prasadam.
I am going to give prasadam now.
Oh, you need to get back there. Okay. Yeah. Hare Krishna. How are you all?
I want to. So I've been stuck with some with my Java chanting and like in devotional service and feeling like stuck, and had an amazing conversation with Living Shakti yesterday. And what I feel like is happening is I'm getting in touch with my very unique personal path. Not like, because before it was really black. I was looking at myself as black and white, like failing at XYZ.
Okay.
It was just like I had no other perspective for months and years. I don't know, just like not doing good and XYZ. But now it's like, maybe there's like a reason, and like I just need to explore that. And I'm like, okay, this is my personal path. It's a really, really personal path.
Yeah,
It's
very
like
personal.
A very personal journey. And I need to navigate it attuned to my nature and meet myself where I'm at. And so I want to walk on this path.
Yeah.
It's not really like doubt about the path or
Yeah.
no desire. No, this is still deeply a desire for Bhakti Yoga. I really like the philosophy and the ultimate in the purpose and everything. Like I just love it. I love Prabhupada. And like it's not really any problem with that. But like I just have a nature that needs to be aware. I need to be aware of that. Like we all need to be aware of our unique personal strengths and weaknesses, like you were saying, endeavor executed with intelligence. Like
Yeah.
I want to be steady. I want to be on this path, and like, what am I contending with? And then continuing to get to know that, and not put a label or box on me, or not for none of us to put a label like, oh, I'm this type of person. And, you know, just continue to be in the spirit of discovery of like, well, there's some reason I'm struggling, or like, you know, continue to be curious and not like black and white about it. You know, like I'm either good or I'm bad at Bhakti Yoga.
I guess I'm hearing you, you know, becoming more responsible and mature in your relationship with the process.
Well, like for one day, yeah. But I'm contemplating the possibility I could be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Damayanti. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.